Swayam Vishnu Paramanam Saparayata Kachaya Gurusvachati Siddham Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON and Priya Pankaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Mataji Vaishnava Ki Jai. Guru Parampara Ki Jai. Nandara Krishna Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Mataji Vaishnava Ki Jai. Samagara Bhakta Ki Jai. Anything Guru Priya Hari Guru. God bless you, dear son. Hare Krishna. God bless you, dear son. Hare Krishna. God bless you, dear son. Hare Krishna. God bless you, Guru. Shri Gauradesh. God bless you, Shri Gauradesh. Zwei russischsprachige.
Stimmt.
Und die kann ich übersetzen.
Man kann alles übersetzen. Haribo.
Du bist Priya Devasiki.
Ja.
Vishnu, Vishnu, Shri Vishnu.
Он так быстро устает, что не успевает останавливаться.
Super. Sehr gut. Very flexible. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Charanaruttanam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtapayeshva Vagrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishike Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manuvishtam Savitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Nadati Svapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakammalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Mitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandha Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutta Devi Panamami Hare Hare Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, devotees. Nice to be here with you day by day. Thank you very much for your beautiful association. Every devotee is so unique, and I highly appreciate this opportunity to be in the temple. Every day again get this opportunity to render service. And please, everyone who sees this movie, come join the temple, see how beautiful it is in association of devotees, taste Krishna prasadam, experience the happiness of Krishna consciousness and chanting and dancing in ecstasy. Today we read from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 14th chapter text, number 9, with the title The Material World as the Great Forest of Enjoyment. But before we do that, our tradition is to read from the Transcendental Diary. Travels with His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Maharishi Prabhu. This is very important because this book demonstrates how a devotee Bhagavata, his life is not different from the book Bhagavata. So for us it's very good to see that, and especially there are many connections day by day when I read this book. So Srila Prabhupada is still here in Sri Vrindavan on November 24th, 1976. The Uber cassette player has broken down again. I got the class this morning, but now it has started acting up again. So I am again forced to use the reel-to-reel, which is a great inconvenience, quite apart from it being large and heavy and therefore difficult to lug around. Keeping track of what is on a tape is also a problem. With cassettes, you can simply write the dates on the outer casing along with conversation or Srimad Bhagavatam class to indicate the subject. But with the reels, you have many recordings on one tape and have to write the information for each one on the container box rather than on the reel itself, so it's easy to get confused. And if a reel gets misplaced from its box, it is a big problem. Chitta Haridas, the temple president in Auckland, arrived today. He is passing through after a trip to America and Europe and will head back to New Zealand in a few days. After Srila Prabhupada replied to him last month, telling him that it was up to him how he spent the money he received, he paid off the temple debts and decided to spend the balance on a trip to other temples to broaden his experience. Apart from this, however, he has come with a specific request to Prabhupada. He met with him this morning to discuss some problems in the South Sea zone. Guru Kripa Swami has already let it be known to Srila Prabhupada that he does not want to be the GBC in Australia. And Chitta Hari now reports that in the absence of a GBC, things have become a little split there. He said that some of the senior men have begun to argue with one another and that things are deteriorating. They are holding Ratha Yatra in Melbourne, but with only one Ratha. They used to have 3, and the usual city route has been denied. Some legal cases have arisen, and they do not feel that anyone there is capable of handling them. Yashodanandana Swami, who was to have gone there, has now been instructed by Srila Prabhupada to remain permanently in Vrindavan, teaching in the Gurukul. Srila Prabhupada heard Chitta Hari out and pondered a solution. He suggested that perhaps Gargamuni Swami, who is due here soon with a new car, might be asked to go there to take charge. So, did something of this small section capture your attention or inspire some further thoughts or comments? Huh? But you understood everything. So first of all, here is a very nice incident that this Yuha cassette player, which was used to record Srila Prabhupada's classes and morning walks, again broke down, so they had some technical issues, and they had to rely on the previous version, which is the reel-to-reel, what is it called, reel-to-reel machine anyway, which is very big and unhandy, and there's some difficulties in pinpointing, so to say, what exactly is on the tape, especially when it gets displaced or something, because many classes can be on one reel. So that is one incident that struck my attention, that nowadays we have so much technological advancement which makes life more comfortable. But we will see later in today's discussion that there are also negative consequences of that. But it's good to note that. And then, in the other thing that was reported here, is that Chitahari Prabhu, the temple president in Auckland, also reports, no, first of all, he was allowed to spend, by Srila Prabhupada, to spend the money that he received in his, according to his own discrimination or decision, so to say. So he paid off the temple debts, and also because his inclination was to travel around and gather some experiences, he also used it for that. So we can see that Srila Prabhupada empowered his devotees to act independently thoughtful once they had some Krishna conscious foundation and they knew how to do things. Like a Brahmana is supposed to give donations, receive donations and give donations. I don't know if this Chitahari does, and also was a sannyasi, but apparently not, because otherwise there would be standing Swami. But he received donations, I guess, for the temple. And then, so we can see that he is utilizing these assets or these resources properly in Krishna consciousness. And then, also, he reports that the GBC in Australia, he doesn't want to be the GBC in Australia, and he reports that in the absence of a GBC, or Guru Kripa Swami does not want to be the GBC in Auckland, and Chitahari Prabhu reports that due to the absence of a qualified leader, the things are starting to deteriorate. Legal cases, the Ratha Yatra being kind of sized down with one cart only, not being allowed the usual route, just a different one, and so many arguments between the senior devotees and everything. So from that, we can also see how important it is to have a social structure, a king or president as the head of the society. But yeah, as we see here in the example of Chitahari Prabhu, a leader which has discrimination based upon spiritual values, like it was the case in the Vedic high culture. Questions or comments to this? Already very concise, but in preparing the class, I got so enthused, to speak about a particular topic, which I prepared here with the computer, with the help of technological advancement. But I want to speak a little bit about a controversial subject matter, which is freedom. So let's see what we have here. Okay, so we will read first of all the verse, which is not written on the board and is prose anyway. We read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, which has the title Impetuses for Creation, or the Impetus for Creation. The chapter title is The Material World as the Great Forest of Enjoyment, which is a further elaboration of Srila Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit about what Maharaj Jadabharata was teaching to Rahugana Maharaj. And the verse number 9 goes as follows: Kvachit chavatya upamyaya pramadaya ruham arupitas tatkara rajasa rajani bhuta iva sadhu mayadu rajas valakshu pidik divata atirajas valamatir navijanati. Word by word translation. Kvachit, sometimes. Cha, also. Vatya upamyaya, sorry. compared to a whirlwind. You know what is a whirlwind? Like a tornado, for example? Yeah? Very impressive example of whirlwind. Compared to a whirlwind. Pramadaya. By a beautiful woman. Aroham aropitaha. Raised onto the lap. For sex enjoyment. Tatkala rajasa. By the passion of lusty desires at that moment. Rajani bhutaha. The darkness of night. Eva. Like. Asadu mayadaya. Sorry. Who is without proper respect. For the higher witnesses. Rajavala akshaha. Blinded by strong lusty desires. Api. Certainly. Diktevataha. The demigods in charge of different directions. Like the sun and the moon. Atiraja valamatihi. Whose mind is overcome by lust. Navijanati. He does not know. In brackets, that witnesses all around. Please repeat. That witnesses all around take note of his impudent sexual act. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sometimes, as if blinded by the dust of a whirlwind, the conditioned soul sees the beauty of the opposite sex, which is called pramada. Being thus bewildered, he is raised upon the lap of a woman, and at that time his good senses are overcome by the force of passion. He thus becomes almost blind with lusty desire, and disobeys the rules and regulations governing sex life. He does not know that his disobedience is witnessed by different demigods, and he enjoys illicit sex in the dead of night, not seeing the future punishment awaiting him. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 7:11, it is said, Dhamma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatashava. Sex is allowed only for the begetting of children, not for enjoyment. One can indulge in sex to beget a good child for the benefit of the family, society, and the world. Otherwise, sex is against the rules and regulations of religious life. A materialistic person does not believe that everything is managed in nature, and he does not know that if one does something wrong, he is witnessed by different demigods. A person enjoys illicit sex, and due to his blind, lusty desire, he thinks that no one can see him. But this illicit sex is thoroughly observed by the agents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the person is punished in so many ways. Presently, in Kali Yuga, there are many pregnancies due to illicit sex, and sometimes abortions ensue. These sinful activities are witnessed by the agents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the men and women who create such a situation are punished in the future by the stringent laws of material nature. Illicit sex is never excused, and those who indulge in it are punished, life after life. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 16:20, Asurim yunim apana muta janmani janmani mama prapyaiva kaunteya tato jayanti tato yanti adhaman gatim. Attaining repeated birth among the species of demoniac life, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not allow anyone to act against the stringent laws of material nature. Therefore, illicit sex is punished, life after life. Illicit sex creates pregnancies, and these unwanted pregnancies lead to abortion. Those involved become implicated in sins, so much so that they are punished in the same way the next life. Thus, in the next life, they also enter the womb of a mother and are killed in the same way. All these things can be avoided by remaining on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness. In this way, one does not commit sinful activity. Illicit sex is the most prominent sin due to lusty desire. When one associates with the modes of passion, he is implicated in suffering life after life. Again, the verse and the translation. Kvachitcha vatya upamyaya pramadaya ruhang aropitas tatkala rajasa rajani bhuta ivasadu mayadu rajasvalakshu pedik devata atirajasvalamatir navijanati. Sometimes, as if blinded by the dust of a whirlwind, the conditioned soul sees the beauty of the opposite sex, which is called pramada. Being thus bewildered, he is raised upon the lap of a woman. And at that time his good senses are overcome by the force of passion. He thus becomes almost blind with lusty desire and disobeys the rules and regulations governing sex life. He does not know that his disobedience is witnessed by different demigods, and he enjoys illicit sex in the dead of night, not seeing the future punishment awaiting him. So here we have different points that Srila Prabhupada mentions, and which I wanted to first of all pinpoint. I don't know if anyone of us has the experience of a whirlwind, which, let's say, for example, in the desert you have dust or something flying around, sand wind, and you cannot see. So normally the nomads or people who are living in the desert, they are, if they have the camels or something with them, they make them to lie down and they hide behind them and cover their all holes of the body, basically, so that this forceful wind cannot enter, the nostrils, the mouth, the ears, the eyes and everything. It's not only that one cannot see, but it's kind of completely shut down. Can you understand that? So, and this is the analogy which is given here, that sometimes our higher intelligence, our knowledge of the soul, can also be shut down when the mode of passion takes over, Rajagun. And here, the most strong attachment to material life, sex life, is being mentioned as the example of this whirlwind. And then the Srimad Bhagavatam or Srila Shukadeva Goswami explains, thus he becomes almost blind with lusty desires, almost blind, Can you imagine how blind people live? It's very limited. And so, but this blindness which is mentioned here refers to spiritual blindness, that we forget the goal of life, self-realization, and we completely focus on that which is happening in that moment, which is basically an interaction of different modes of nature, different sense objects being in touch with the senses. But that is not me. I am the spiritual soul. In another place, Srila Prabhupada also, he was a little bit analyzing that, we know that in Sankhya Yoga, Sankhya philosophy, we analyze the different elements of the material world. And the material body, I think this is in Krishna book actually, where Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that the body does not even belong to oneself. And the question can be raised, but if the body does not belong to oneself, to whom does it belong? Does it belong to material nature, because it is a part of the elements of material nature? One could argue for that. Or does the body belong to the parents, because the parents gave the body to us, right? The body is like the vehicle, and without the vehicle we could not act in this world. We could not act out our desires and neither achieve self-realization. So would the body then belong to the parents? Because without the parents, if a small baby is born and the parents neglect him, he will die. Then the parents look after him, feed him, and clean him and raise him, give some good education and whatever, some money, so he can make different experiences in this world. And in this way, gradually a man grows up, and his discrimination is also expected to grow up actually. Therefore, children generally, they are being educated in school, in the kindergarten, for social reasons, and in the school. And then when we come into first work life, we have an apprenticeship where we study something. Then also we get so many experiences, what it actually means to be an adult, that it's not just fun, there's a lot of duties. Or one could also argue, does the body belong to the master who feeds him? Let's say when we work somewhere, today slavery is not so common, but if we work for someone, we need the salary. We are not selflessly acting for the person, but we just act selfishly because I know by my actions I get money, so I can enjoy the world. I can afford a nice apartment, nice wife, whatever, nice car or whatever, holidays. So does the body belong to material nature, to the parents that feed him, or also to the master who's paying him the salary, which is again feeding him? Or does it belong to Krishna, maybe, to the original source of everything, to the source of all material and spiritual creations? So I guess every one of us knows the answer, But okay, let's set aside this intelligent analyzation for one side. If we still recognize that this is there, like Srila Prabhupada did that, analysis, so but how do we still not act in that way? Why we still identify with the body? And we are prepared to commit sinful activities just to enjoy. Can you see what I'm aiming at? This is like stupid, like a person bereft of any knowledge, like a dumb person, who is only concerned with himself, only me and mine, and this is animalistic life. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada and the Vedas, they give different examples of this materialistic worldview, let's say, that the people there are compared to asses who work very hard, to hogs and dogs who basically eat stool and eat everything that they want to eat and engage freely in sexuality and everything, and camels are eating thorns of a tree, and when they eat the thorns and chew on them, the thorns sting their tongues and then blood comes out. And the camels, they like the blood that comes out, the flavor of the blood. Let's say like some people, they like to eat chocolate, for example, right? So, and the camel has that taste for eating the stones because of the taste of the blood that then comes out. It does not realize it's its own blood. And this is an analogy for a person who is attached to sex life, because by a man's body is constituted in such a way that it needs a lot of blood, so many drops to form one particular drop of semen, so it takes blood in order to produce semen. And then if the semen is spent uselessly, so much of the energy and higher intelligence is also spent uselessly. It's like wasted. But one can also, by restricting oneself and practicing brahmacharya, one can retain that energy and uplift it to his brain with certain processes and substances and everything, like for example milk, cow's milk. Therefore, cows are very important. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned that by drinking hot cow milk, that the finer tissues in the brain are being built up so that we can understand better higher spiritual topics. So even when we look at it biochemically, it really makes a lot of sense what the Vedas have to offer. Camels, asses, dogs and hogs. And so we can see that they are not just like, how to say, bad words, bad naming or something, of materialistic tendencies, but they're actually just giving elucidative examples of how that is relevant in daily life. So then here, to return to the text, so the conditioned soul being bewildered, almost blinded by this whirlwind of lust, being raised upon the lap of a woman to try to enjoy sex life, is basically overcome by the force of passion. So that's another thing. The material modes are acting. This is not me acting, it is just the senses engaging with the objects of the senses under the government of particular modes of material nature. But I think I am enjoying. And then by doing that activity, whether illicit or legal, there are so many consequences. But here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions the consequences of illicit sex life. And he just mentions a few of them. Arjuna also is speaking about that in the first chapter, in the end of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So I will just speak here a little bit about taking in the points. And so he says that basically we can see that nowadays there are so many pregnancies due to illicit sex life. And sometimes abortion ensue. There was even some, recently, there was even some government official, I do not know if it was some minister or something in America, who was advocating to legalize abortions. Can you imagine that? And then, of course, they voted against it, fortunately. And then he said, oh, what a pity, people should have, accepted that. It's such a blessing. But Srila Prabhupada here is explaining that one has a soul who aborts another soul, kicks him out, when he has already entered. It's like killing this body. He's not killing the soul, but then because of obstructing that soul to reincarnate, to get another body, and he has to wait again to get another opportunity. And this can happen time after time. So one can be there can be so many obstacles to take his birth even, Just imagine you enter into the womb of a woman, and after a certain time the baby also becomes conscious there, and then starts to feel the things. And this is also very vividly being described, I think, in the end of the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. What happens at the time of death, and also what happens in the beginning when the baby is still within the womb, and the sufferings which he has to endure there. He's very tight and narrow, and there are worms which are there and biting his soft skin, And so it's, it's not a very pleasant situation. And then just imagine you're being kicked out again and again, and you cannot even take birth. So then such a person who does make abortion, he or she will have to suffer the same kind of situation. We saw what we saw, we reap. This is one law that Jesus gave us, one simplistic rule that we can remember. As we act, we get the reactions, right? So very sinful. And then here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada also says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not allow anyone to act against the stringent laws of material nature. Therefore, illicit sex life is punished life after life. There are even hells specifically to punish illicit sex life, where one is forced to embrace where one is forced to embrace a man or woman out of fire, basically, and engage like he did previously in his sexual acts. People don't know that, you know. Therefore, in every civilized culture, there's the institution of marriage. It's very, very important. Not important, but yeah, it's very important. Anyway, because by regulating this activity and understanding the science behind that, the science of consciousness, one can actually contribute to the welfare of one's family, society, and world, like Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the beginning. That should be the only reason why to engage in sex, not to beget Krishna-conscious children, that can uplift the quality of the family, the tradition. So many, we can all maybe understand from our own lifespan and from that of our parents and maybe grandparents, how we have to learn certain life lessons. And sometimes people don't learn them. Either they don't want to learn them, or they push them away and they develop heavy diseases in their bodies or minds because of that pushing away, or develop some bad characteristics or something. You have that experience? So just because of pushing away these lessons that, we came here to learn. In every incarnation we are here to learn certain things. It's not that we learn everything at once. Like when we go to school, we don't jump immediately to make the matura or study, but we have to go to the first class and in primary school, and then we, according to our qualifications, we enter high school and maybe college and university, like that, isn't it? So, anyway, it is basically really important to understand the consciousness behind that, because when, let's say, husband and wife want to create another opportunity for another soul to incarnate, to give another vehicle to that soul, they should be not only in good physical health, but also in good consciousness. And so this is important, because the consciousness that one has by engaging in any activities is also taken into consideration by judging them later, and also for the particular soul that one attracts at the time of impregnation. And then Srila Prabhupada, he quotes this verse from Bhagavad Gita 7:11, Balang balavatam chahang kamaraga vivarjitam dharma virudho bhuteshu kamusmi bharatashava. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of the Bharatas, Arjuna. Purport. The strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. Similarly, sex life, according to religious principles, Dharma, should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise. The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious. So do you have questions to this section of the lecture? Because otherwise I would broaden the topic a little bit more into values that we have as foundations of our activities, and real freedom versus fake freedom. No questions? Everything is clear? Are we all ready to surrender wholeheartedly, 108%? We do simply what Krishna tells us, or we have some doubts or comments about that? Because one could also challenge, but yeah, this is a natural activity. This is my proclivity to have sex life. It is very natural. Yes, it is natural, but it's natural on the basis of the body. And the human form of life is not meant like the asses, hogs and dogs and camels to work hard like an animal and be limited according to his instincts and only eating, sleeping, meeting and defending. Human form of life is especially meant for Brahman realization. Atato Brahma Jigyasa is the first aphorism in Vedanta Sutra, which means that now, therefore, that means now, since we have acquired this human form of life, which has the potential of inquiring into Brahman, we should utilize this option to inquire into Brahman. Atato Brahma Jigyasa, Brahman Jigyasa, inquire into. We should search after the truth, and we can see throughout the history people are philosophically engaging, searching religiously or spiritually, right? Isn't it? It's like a natural proclivity of the soul. We want to accumulate knowledge, we want to understand the ways of the material world. Also we can see that reflected in science, material sciences, different ones. But this is the tendency of the soul, and this is what we also need to take into consideration, not just the proclivities of the body. So I want to read something that I find very interesting, but it's in German, so I will try my best to translate it into German. Just 1 second. And this is on, I researched something on autarky. You know what is autarky? Autarky is if you can maintain yourself completely and you're not reliant for support on anyone else. You know, people, they are very proud nowadays on being independent, right? So I want to discuss that a little bit. Would you like to hear more about this, or you're not so interested in that topic? Wenn du müde bist, ist es besser aufzustehen. Weil das ist disrespektvoll zum Srimad Bhagavatam, das ist Krishna. Das ist wie wenn du Darshan hast und vor den Deities einschläfst. Es ist besser aufzustehen. Du kannst auch gerne zum Fenster gehen, ein bisschen Luft dir reinholen oder so. Also Autarkie is the economic independence of a private household, of a region or of a state, by which it can fully or partially acquire his means and services. It also comes etymologically from the Old Greek language autarkeia and autarkes, which means to be self-sufficient, possessing sufficient means, in being independent. Autos means the self or one's own, and archein, which means to defend or help, to be sufficient. So from this, already just from the etymological root of the word, we can also confer the applicability to spiritual life. Srila Prabhupada, he said that we need to strive for a healthy life and self-sufficient. We should be self-sufficient, not rely on anything else. And in another instance, Srila Prabhupada also mentioned that we need to be independently thoughtful. Instead of following blindly, without questioning things, we should be independently thoughtful. So these are just 3 of our Krishna consciousness values according to which we are meant to somehow or other design our lives. You understand how values are important for the basis of our activities, and then like philosophy, you know, we have to have a clear knowledge and then you act according to that, and then by the actions you get certain results. So if you want to have a good society, You need to have good values. And on the other way around, you can judge the tree by its fruits, as Jesus says, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the Bible, but I was coming from the Christian tradition, and I like Jesus a lot, so he gives very good short, almost like sutra analogies, You can judge the tree by its fruits. A good tree cannot have bad fruits, and a bad tree cannot have good fruits. So we can see, we can evaluate an activity, or also this autarky, according to how it manifests, according to its fruits, right? Instead of acting short-sightedly just because driven by passion, I feel like, okay, now I need to engage in sexual activity, we need to be foresighted and understand, actually I'm going to be responsible for that, The consciousness that I'm having now by creating the child is that I will have to live with that until the end of my life, So better not to create any rocks and rascals, right? We want to have a good consciousness in that activity. Or also to maintain the children. And nowadays we can see there are so many single mothers who are being supported by government support, and also single men who have to pay so many fees to support non-wedded women in which they created children, right? And people are becoming psychologically sick because they have one bad experience after another, and they get frustrated. And why is that? Just looking from the back to the front, basically, So why is that? Why are people so much frustrated? People are looking for happiness, but they do not know how to find real happiness. They don't know that they can find happiness only within. Like Srila Prabhupada here in this today's purport, he mentions that avidya, or ignorance, the missing of knowledge, is like the root cause of this sinful activity, actually. Therefore, it is our first duty as human beings to educate ourselves, to understand what is real knowledge, what is fake knowledge, and to feed our discrimination by that, by really studying and inquiring and I found it also very nice that here in this Wikipedia article, it is being described that autarky is also being, the name autarky is also referred to the example of a man or human who is self-sufficient, so he does not need anyone else anymore to support him or to fulfill his desires or needs. And we can see the perfection of that, for example, in Srila Shukadeva Goswami. He's completely self-sufficient. He doesn't need to marry a woman just because he did not develop his feminine aspect and rebalance it with his masculine nature. In a material society, people are looking outside, external, for solutions. But the problem is, by trying to find external solutions, the heap of external side effects is also growing. The planet is being spoiled, relationships are being spoiled, isn't it? And people become more and more dependent, actually. People think, yes, I want to be free, and then, but this is just some kind of sentimental concoction or something. The value is real, and we also want to be independently thoughtful, and we want to be free of the influence of the modes of nature, not just to react in particular situations, but we want to have the ability to choose. So it needs a little bit more room, in that moment of actions that are happening around us, so that we can use our higher intelligence and our higher discrimination. Oh yeah, I should behave like that. That means culture. But we can see that nowadays, even though people maintain that notion of independence and they appreciate it as such a high value, they are becoming implicated more and more into dependency. The state. Or am I speaking too quick? Yeah, you can still follow. Please give me some sign if I speak too quick, because I really need to, I want to practice that more. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, better. Exactly, we need to train, like this freedom in the moment. We can only grow that by training, by detachment, and by appropriate practice, as Krishna says. We can control the mind. So it requires discipline, self-discipline. So I was about to say that nowadays, even though people, they value very much this value of independence, being independent and everything, but they are so blinded, like here the example is given from lust, from this whirlwind, or let's say by being invested in a false identification of the body, which we actually are not, but by thinking I am this body, I am the doer, So people feel only, like sentimentally, that yes, I want to be free, right? Can you follow? But what is the consequence of that freedom? Now let's judge the tree by its results. Let's take Jesus' examining tool, let's say, Let's take that and apply that. Are people becoming more free or less free? If you look at people, they become, they take many loans nowadays for higher education, for getting sufficient sense enjoyment or something. So they have credits which then they need to work off. And they need to have any job for that just pays them enough, right? So they have to work like an ass. And are they free in their choices? Basically also not, because what I feel attracted to is according to the composition of the material qualities that this vehicle of material body and mind and intelligence acquired, So let's say, for example, I may like to eat hot food, a lot of spicy food, for example, or drink alcohol or something, But then the people are not free to act. They just automatically feel kind of pulled to eat particular things or drink or whatever. And with intoxicants, it's especially destructive, because it's really destroying the capability of people, the mental and intelligent faculties, It's destroying not only socially people, like when we take, for example, alcohol, It's such a prominent intoxicant that's not even really considered to be like a drug, It's just socialized, right? You want to have fun, so you go out to socialize with your friends, you drink some beer or vodka or whatever, and just to have fun, right? So it's not considered to be abuse of drugs, isn't it? But what is happening? The people, they try to forget, really, they are miseries. Maybe they have something which is not working in their lives, whether financially or in relationships or with their own peace, so to say, and self-satisfaction. So they want to forget these kind of things and all the consequences that carry after that. And then they drink. And they drink, and then gradually they become accustomed to drinking, so much so that eventually they cannot live without it anymore. So they must have it. Are they free? No. Then at that point they compromise their liberty, isn't it? And also their social relations can become very strained by that. Once before I came to Krishna consciousness, I had a boyfriend whose parents were drinkers, especially the father. And his liver was already very bad. Sometimes he looked all yellow and he was just coughing all the day. He was very moody, and because it's just, you're not satisfied when you do that activity. You're not solving the real problem, birth, death, old age and disease, but you try to push aside and forget the problems, that is not working out in relationships, or you have some financial issues or whatever, right? So the problems are not becoming less, but more. So you have more reasons for drinking, right? And then the inner satisfaction also becomes less because the relationships get strained, you have more stress with other people, and this is also not satisfying. So people, they enter this kind of hellish circle. Why? On the search for enjoyment. And this is not just addiction to substances, it can be also addiction to food or to particular activities. Like people can be also addicted to adrenaline and then do all kinds of crazy sports like bungee jumping or I don't know, So, maybe it's not crazy, but for me it appears to be crazy sports, And so, why? Because they search for the real experience, but this real experience is internally, it's not externally. So can you understand how by trying to find external solutions to our internal problems, we just make a mess with the planet, with society, and people become more and more enslaved. And then technology also has that bad side. There's now artificial intelligence is being developed and pressed forward to develop so much so that I heard the next generation of Facebook that they already are planning is to have a virtual reality in which you can interact. So it's not just anymore a social platform, but it's kind of an escape room from our actual life. And do you know Matrix, the movie Matrix? So in that movie, Matrix, you can see how there is actually, people are living in this kind of virtual reality. And there are many other movies like that. Once I was watching one movie also where the main actor, he died, and in some last minute decision, they decided, okay, let's conserve his consciousness in the computer. At that point, the technology was already so much advanced, to conserve it, And you needed to have some subscription or someone paying for you in order to continue your existence, So he did that, and it was a very limiting and not very free experience, even though it looked like heaven without God, so to say. But if you were not able to pay the subscription, if you did not have a family member or whoever to continue that, and they just forgot about you, then you just had like very few amount of bytes only, and you were basically like in the dark jail. You could not do anything, So congratulations, here you are in hell again, cyber hell, And people, they don't understand that it's happening right now, actually, By accepting all the apparently good things, then that the services have to offer, like particular companies which offer free services, what people are doing without noticing, maybe even, they are just giving their permissions to be a human being that is very transparent, and you can understand, everyone can understand the dates of the person, his inclinations by his shopping, whatever, not paper, this point system that they have, payback system, they have so many different means to understand what is that person about, what does it consume, they're just seeing the human beings as consumer. And so we become transparent consumers. And then by being implicated more and more into that, they're thinking about chipping human beings, So that is convenient. You don't have to carry any cards anymore. You don't have to carry any purse anymore. You just have a chip in the skin with which you can pay, with which the doctor immediately knows when something happens to you. Maybe there's some emergency, what you are allergic against, what is your medication and everything. It looks convenient, but actually, when there would be the whole world full of artificial intelligence, what would be the need of human beings? So why not, kill them? And we can see, if we are a little bit inquisitive, what is happening in this world. There are many interesting articles to be found in the internet, which actually, can open the eyes about what is really happening in the world, beyond the veil of consumerism and fake freedom. just wanted to say a little bit to that. This is really interesting if you want to read it on your own, at least in German language here, which is written in Wikipedia in autarky. Maybe you can find it in English or in Russian. It's really, really interesting to understand how we actually need to be self-sufficient within ourselves, but in the Vedic society, we are not independent. We are part of a social body and we are interdependent. And in this interdependency, we experience happiness. We experience happiness not only being all by our own, but by experiencing things with our friends, with our family members, right? That is actually the main thing that we feel experiences. And that's also the reason why Krishna expands himself into us, into so many, in order to increase the enjoyment. Okay, I don't want to prolong it unnecessarily. Do you have any questions or comments? It was a little bit heavy class, but do you understand why I was so much speaking about this so-called liberty and real liberation, what it means? You know, that we have the moments to find the decision that is better and not just being reactive according to the modes of material nature, and how our values and behind our values, our developing knowledge and the need to develop real knowledge are actually the basis of all of our activities. Yeah. So if you really want to be happy, come here. Come visit us in Gauradesh and in the Hare Krishna temples all around the world and be happy. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy and make your life sublime. This is the biggest blessing ever. Srila Prabhupada is the savior of the world. He saved the Western world from the teachings of impersonalism and voidism. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Patira Pavana ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jai Nitya Guru Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.